All right. All right. Well, this is so exciting for me. Not only are we twinning, but I get to have a conversation with Michelle Weger and really just get to know this beautiful, beautiful soul. And it has been very interesting to me how we are here together, how we are having a conversation. And I just told her that the format of my podcast really is about like we're just meeting for coffee. And so I was just at an event about a week or so ago, a beautiful event. And I did notice Michelle, but I also noticed her companion, and we'll get into that a little bit. And then in conversations, catching each other on social media, I'm like, oh, I need to know more about you. So welcome to this beautiful podcast and welcome to Conversations and Coffee with Michelle Weger.
Hey, this is going to be awesome.
Oh, yeah, I love it. And we just tuned in here and we realized we're both twinning in our pink, sleeveless with our hair down. So there's already so many things going fabulous here today. But if we were meeting for coffee, which we are, you've got your coffee, I got my water. I really want to just know about you. I want to know about you and what's got you kind of, living into this life right now. And then we'll take it the way that it's meant to take. But I can't wait to get to know more about you and your story. So wherever you feel like riffing, you go.
I'm in a phase right now of following my gut, following my intuition, trying to feel and listen. And this podcast is one of those things. Like you said, we just kept crossing paths. And yeah, we're at an event, the same event, but so were 2,000 other people? I didn't see their faces in person and online as much as I kept seeing you. And that is what drew me to wanting to engage with you more. And then you asked me to do this podcast. So here I am, because certain messages, when they come up like that, it's foolish to ignore it. You can't.
I literally have goosebumps because I was just telling you what the show used to be called. And now it's called Trust Your Magic, which is really just about your gut. And that's beautiful because I didn't know that you've noticed me, so I love hearing that. I really do love hearing that. So I know you're an author. I know you're launching into a lot of things, but tell us a little bit about your story, because what I know is that somebody that is showing up, somebody that's saying yes, somebody that's leaning into podcasting and going to events, there's something in your soul, in your heart that's moving you forward to want to be, do, or have. So tell us who you are and about you, whatever zone you want to, and then we can get into the magic and all of that. But when I saw, I was like, whoa, I need to know this girl so bad. So I know what you're going to do, and I'm honored that I get to be part of it at the beginning.
Yay. So I, years ago now, started a website development and automation company. It does incredibly well. I'm very fortunate. It's a very typical online business. It's probably the only typical thing about me, though. So I have narcolepsy, which is a sleep disorder. You may have seen some fainting llama videos before, or for those who are millennial or older, during Rat Race, one of the characters on that movie kept getting ahead and falling asleep. And whilst it was a comedy, it also hits very close to home. So I right now feel as tired as if any of your listeners have stayed up for 48 hours straight. So that's not one night, that's two. And then you have to go about your daily life every day, that tired forever. So needless to say, everything is harder.
Can I just ask a question, and please excuse my ignorance? Are you born with narcolepsy? Does it come on? What does that look like?
So you're not born with it. They found out just a few years ago now that it's triggered by autoimmune, and most people get it in their late teens, early 20s. So I do remember what normal felt like. It was nice. Some days I wish I didn't remember what it felt like to wake up in the morning after you've slept and actually not feel tired. I still remember that. And one day something happens. For me, I did competitive cheerleading, the type, like American style. So acrobatics, not pom-poms. And I got 3 concussions in a very short period of time. flip, 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 flip. And that's not good for the brain. I started getting very sleepy, which is different than tired, but tired is the word we all use as a society. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until you thankfully do hit a rock bottom where all of the hormone that controls sleep and wake in your brain is gone. And once it's gone, you can't get worse. So that's the blessing in this. I'm now 10 years, more actually, 15 into this. And so it's not going to get worse. I already know how bad it is. And I've spent the last 10 years building a life around the fact that I've got to deal with this. It's not going away. And I can either literally stay in my bed and be sad about it, or I can find ways to be different and do different and make a life that's different than planned, but still exceptional and amazing.
I just thought of something that I recently have been hearing about, in this like whole world of like marketing and branding and blah, blah, blah. It's better to be different than better.
Yeah, Sally Hogstead says that.
That's exactly who it is. That's exactly who it is. Who she just found her way into my world not too long ago. But I was like, yeah, like you came on this. I'm like, I've never used this platform before. That would stop so many people because it's like, oh, I got to be better. And I'm like, no, I think just going with the flow is almost different. So I love that. It's so much. And I never knew it came from an autoimmune and I never knew that it couldn't get worse. And I like pulling the nuggets out of it all. And so when you talked about that feeling of maybe not remembering what it felt like that, what it feels like to not be tired. And is that a good thing or a blessing or a curse? It's such an interesting perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what gets me. I don't get down a lot. I mean, look, the early days is different. Any diagnosis, even though you want it, it took me 5 years to find out. And the average for narcolepsy is actually 10 to 15 years. It's a long time searching. So when you do find out, of course, that's very relieving. But that feeling is quickly replaced with grief because you now know this isn't something that it's not going to get worse, but it doesn't get better ever. It's forever. Your life is impacted. They take your driver's license away that day. So sure, something really important, but a huge part of, for me at least, being an independent adult woman who could take care of herself. Well, all of a sudden at the time I was working as a waitress. And so all of those late night, high revenue generating shifts were gone for me because the buses didn't run that late. And this wasn't the era of Ubers either.
Wow. Okay. So can you go back to a time where you had an epiphany from this, where you started to understand that your story could help people? If this is the time to kind of talk about your book, let's get into that because it's so freaking fantastic. And, but when did you have hey, how do I make lemonade out of these lemons? What, can you remember a moment?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So one that was really powerful for me fairly recently, within the last 6 months, I was speaking at an event for lawyers about automation. So nothing about motivation, nothing about my story, but my right-hand woman was with me, Quinn, my service dog. And at the end of the day, a woman came up to me and she was very emotional, struggling to get the words out. And to make a long story shorter, although the full story is in the book, she had so much fear of letting anyone know that her service dog, who was at home, was a medical tool that she was using. She had had a brain injury, and she was afraid if her employer knew, they'd fire her. If the clients found out, they wouldn't want her on their file anymore. The only people that knew were those that are absolute closest, right? Your medical team. It was being hidden from everyone, despite the fact that she'd found something that was helping her. In the case of her service dog, This dog would alert when she needed to go away from the screen, which then would stop her from getting these debilitating migraines. So useful, so helpful. But she wasn't leveraging it day to day because she was afraid people finding out would destroy her life. And I used to be afraid like that too, which is one of the main story arcs in my book, Don't Snooze Your Dreams, Lessons from Life with Narcolepsy, because we all have something. And if it's not us personally, it's our child or our partner, or we're a caregiver. Like, everyone has something. And most of us are afraid if our dirty little secret is found out that we'll lose everything. So you play small and you hide and you shrink and you hope no one finds out. But that's not the way to live a life.
It's not the way to live a life. And what I know and why I'm doubling down on the podcast and speaking, and I call it your mess is your magic. And, I'm 54 years old and I heard that and I read the books and I've gone to events. But to your point, oh no, I don't want anyone to know that. Or I show up as this. And if people knew that about me, and now I'm like realizing the more we get to speak about our own, then it gives permission to others. And so what's so interesting about Quinn is that, as I say, with, my dog is about 7 pounds of fur right now. He looks like a slipper. You don't have a service dog that you couldn't really hide. Has that always been your dog? I'm dying to know the story of this because, you're the star, but let's talk a little about her too.
Oh, Quinn's the star, let's be honest. So that's Quinn. For anyone with a visual impairment, Quinn is a Great Dane. She is 120 pounds. And when she stands up on her hind legs, she's taller than my husband, who's about 5'10". So she's probably a 6-foot tall dog when she's fully stood up. Very large dog. So there's no hiding her, for sure. And look, I hear the comments, the ones that are intentionally said loudly and the ones that perhaps people just don't realize that I can hear if I'm trying to give them grace. I look normal, for whatever that's worth. And I know the immediate assumption, based on what I can hear from people, is that she's fake, I'm fake, entitled. What about people with allergies? How could she have a dog here? Oh my goodness. Spend an hour with me and you will see both sides of humanity. You will see.
Oh, I will, because I'll come in and Mama Bear all of that.
And there are people like you, and it's such a gift that is shifting more at such a speed now. It used to be that there would be no one who would stand up when they saw something wrong, especially when we look normal or the breed's atypical. And now more and more beautiful things are happening. And one of those happened just this last weekend in Toronto. So the weekend after our event that we went to, I was back in Toronto for another one. And when checking in for the hotel, look, we all make mistakes. One thing about narcolepsy, though, is you have these moments called microsleep, where you look awake, but you're not. Any parent of a newborn will be able to identify with this one. So, you're watching TV, you're very tired, and all of a sudden the next day you open your fridge and the remote's in there, but the milk's not. So, it's just your brain trying to solve a problem while using as little energy as possible. And that means I can be very forgetful, because if it's not part of just a normal routine, I can leave things behind. And I left my wallet behind in another city, a 4-hour drive away. And I didn't realize it until I got there. But I figured I'd already paid online for the hotel. If you don't show up or you cancel last minute, they can charge you anyways, right? And I had tap on my phone and picture of the card, e-transfer, cash. Like, it would be fine, right? But it wasn't. When we went to check in, the manager was just outright refused to even try any other option. And then a hero stepped in, and his name's Rich Keel, and he was watching it happen. And as he said to me while we shared breakfast on the final night there, along with his wife, Amy, He said, look, it was very clear that it wasn't about the credit card. It was about the service dog. He said the look of disdain he was giving you and the dog, there was no question that's what it was really about, but he knew he couldn't refuse based on that. So it was an easy excuse. And so this hero, who I had never met, who had only been in the same lobby as for a few minutes, stepped in and said, I'll use my credit card. You can use mine. And the manager proceeded to guess what? Just guess. What do you think he did?
Say that's not allowed?
He tried to convince him not to. After telling me the only way I could possibly stay, like, oh, surely you know someone in Toronto who'd bring you a card. Just all that seething. Ugh. And then someone stepped up. And I was, even now, like, I don't have the words. It's been almost a week and I still don't have the words. Because that type of person, like, it's a $500 a night hotel room. And look, when you put down your card, you're guaranteeing it all. I could have ordered nonstop room service. Like, a Great Dane eats a lot of food, but he took the risk. And he did accept my e-transfer, even though the hotel would not, to pay him back immediately. And even then, I was like, oh, I need your email. And he's like, look, we'll work it out. It's fine. Like, I'm not worried. He just followed his intuition. And so he was there for a watch convention. He had just launched his new watch company within the last few years, and he was there to show it to potential customers. And he had no reason to trust or help the stranger, and yet he did. I love people like that.
Well, it's what shows what's in the world, and it makes me looking forward for you to tell me the watch company, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. And also, to be honest, what the hotel is, because there's a lot of choices, and I hope you write a letter, whether that guy gets it or not. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I did. I posted on LinkedIn this morning, actually. And one of the first commenters said, it probably won't matter, but I hope you send in a complaint. I hope you tell them what happened. And that I hadn't. I was so focused on first of all, the shock. And then afterwards, the positive. I didn't want that energy to affect me for the event. But it was great to have someone say that, just like you did. We all need reminders sometimes. So a little nudge to say, hey, you could make a difference here. Even if it's not as big of a hero move as what Rich did, we all can make an impact. No, we all do make an impact one way or another. And not choosing is a choice as well.
Well, and that concept of not as big as he did is all relative, right? Because simply smiling at someone can make an impact. And simply, I know I obviously saw your dog at the event and at the after party. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I want to see this dog so bad because I love dogs. But I'm like, I know enough to know they're on duty. And I guess I'm understanding different dogs have different levels that they can be. But I was like, I don't want to come up to you. And then also that whole thing of like, well, that's your dog and this is you. And you've obviously got stuff. And I mean, Dane on a plane is like hilarious. Like that's the first thing I was like, this human's got a Dane on a plane. Like I'm all over that. But the interesting part of separating you, and I love this because there's so many analogies, right? We all have our own disability. We all have our own thing. And then we all have a version of our safety blanket. With some of them, it's a 6 foot tall dog. And some it's a blankie, and some it's a bottle of alcohol. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so
you're right.
That's where your story is so powerful, because you don't have to have the same situation to be able to see the thread of people interacting or people. It's not seen, but what is seen in any, we're never really seen for who we actually are anyway, especially on social media. And if we're feeling weak, we have to show up like that beautiful woman who sparked your journey to say, I can't show up as me. I'm putting my health at risk because I don't want people to judge me for this dog that's there. And so the freedom that it gives people to be like, wait a minute, there are people that will not accept, which is fine. And so the letter to the gentleman and the hotel is not for you. And because I'm the girl that never lives in negativity either, but it's for the person that's coming next that they, he might have had a bad day and he might have lost a dog. And we know enough about people to know that their pain comes from something further behind. But if we don't say,
he may have been attacked by a dog or, it could be anything.
Yeah. But it's important to tell our story. So I'm so glad that you are. Okay. So when did your book come out?
It came out in the first week of September, and it was a bestseller that same day, which was wild. I was like in multiple categories, and I think it's in 14 categories now in 2 countries, Canada and the US, that it's gotten different number ones, which is it's amazing. It's a gift. And I found out yesterday that already there's been buyers in 5 countries. And that alone, Canada and the US, sure. But Australia, Germany, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I know it's helping people.
Yeah. Can you go back to 10 years ago yourself? That's when you said you were diagnosed 10 years ago. So was it 15 years ago that basically things started to change? So is it 15 years ago that you were starting to experience these?
Oh, I'm the worst with dates. I had to use my mother as my fact checker for my book. I kept sending her messages, being like, this year, what year was that when this happened? But so I was I was 17 when the first time I fell asleep in public. So that's the big one for me that's probably when it happened. I was in university and I was in my early 20s when I was diagnosed, which is 10 years ago now. See, this is how I figure out dates. Welcome to my brain, audience.
Yes. Well, I have a similar without the other thing. So, but if you can go back to 10 years ago, I love doing this with people because I love that you're already in your magic. You're already paying it forward. I'm sure you have conversations with yourself and others all the time thinking like, I know I hear that you're supposed to share your story and it will help other people, but I can't actually believe I'm living in this like truth. If you could go back to 10 years ago, and say, this is what's going to happen, what would you say to her? What would you be saying to her if this was a podcast between you and her right now? And she said, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. My life is over. Am I going to have a family? Am I going to be this? What's going to happen to my career in AI? Who I am is no longer me. What's the point?
Yeah. Average income for a person with narcolepsy is under $35,000 a year. That's not just when you're in your early 20s. That's over an entire career. So that even that alone, like you're probably going to live below the poverty line. And a small percentage of you get married, and 30, 34, 36, it's in the book, % of us are unemployed. We can't even be employed. No one wants us. Good luck, girl, right? That's the things I was telling myself in my head once I got diagnosed, and to the other people around me, the few that were there, because I had such a small life back then. And my goal was I didn't want to live in my mommy's basement. That was it. I wanted to make enough to take care of myself. That's what it was in these much earlier years. I previously had huge goals. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And I got into this super elite program, less than 10 people a year. And I was 17 in university when I started. Like everything was on track. And my hobby was going to be flying planes, because what else do neurosurgeons do with all their spare time? Like, I think all 17-year-olds are a little delusional, but I was going full on with it. Like, let's go. And then I fell asleep on a microscope one day. And it wasn't until that was 5 years later. So all of those massive dreams had to be reined in really quickly. And what I would tell myself? I would encourage me to do what I ended up doing, because that's what I would encourage anyone in this situation, which is, what is the practical, reasonable, highest chance of success option you can take right now? What skill do you already have where you can make money tomorrow. I already knew how to make websites show up on Google and how to make a website because I'd had a stint as a travel blogger before that was a cool Instagram-y thing. But I wasn't using that skill. I wanted to do something way cooler and more glamorous. But when I got that diagnosis, it's what can you do to have some control right now? Because if I can make money now, that means I have control. Yes, I've lost my driver's license, big hit for independence. But if I can have my own place, pay the rent myself, maybe one day not even have a roommate. Ooh, what can I do? One step. And I think when you're going through something hard, it's not going to be over in a week or two, like an illness, a divorce, a child who's struggling in school, right? Like, again, everyone has something. That's not going to be over in a week or two or a month or two. That's long. And I would tell myself and others, lean into where you can take control and have small positive wins. So I celebrated every $100 I made back then. Like, I remember the first time I made $4,000 in a month, I was messaging all my friends, being like, I know it's weird to do this, girls, although now we do it all the time because we've all evolved to celebrate together. And I was like, I can't believe I did this. Like, this is amazing. People like me, they can't do this. That's my advice.
Yeah, there's so much there. I love it. And so what is 10 year from now you doing?
Oh my
what
God,
has she done? What has she done?
I have
or 1 year from now, or what?
I know we might have to go future. Yeah. I have a hard time putting a definition on it in this era because things just keep happening that I never would have expected. Like a couple weeks ago, I was asked to bring Quinn to film with Mr. Beast, the Mr. Beast. They needed a large dog with a particular set of skills, and they reached out. Like things like that are happening. Companies buying bulk books to make donations. They're things that I hadn't even thought of as a possibility. And staying open and receiving and saying, yes, yes, yes. Will you be on my podcast? Yes. Can you come film for this? Yes. I think above all else, the big thing that I haven't said publicly before right now, so this is exciting, is I want there to be, whether it's a documentary, a movie, a miniseries, a full series, something film, either about a version of my story, because you can do that with book rights, or about service dogs. I really think a documentary about the next one being trained by my current one, which is how this one came to be trained. It's such a beautiful and complex and exhausting and stressful and magical experience for everyone involved. And I think that if the general public could see a small part of that, the amount of empathy that would be given to people with disabilities in general, and particularly those of us with service dogs, would be so enhanced, because everyone thinks of it as, oh, you can bring your dog everywhere. I'm so jealous. That is one of the most common lines I get, along with, did you forget her saddle at home? Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir. Yes, of course. Whoopsie. Right? But it's so much work to not only train one of these dogs, it's so much money. And the day-to-day, it's a big hassle. But it's worth it because of the ability to participate in society as an equal, which without her, I wouldn't have been at that conference. I'm not going to be the person who falls asleep in the hall or in the lunchroom or in the bathroom. Like, who knows, right? I wouldn't have taken the risk.
And on the stage, when you're now that you're on stages and stuff more and more.
Yeah. I wouldn't have, none of it. The risk is too high. It's dangerous, especially as a woman.
So what does she do when you do fall asleep? Does she know that it's coming? Does she catch you? Does she transport you on her back too? Like, I'm so curious.
That would be funny. I should go with that joke next time, though.
Just lie on it. When somebody asks you a question, just fake you're asleep and lie on the dog and let her pull you away.
She just drags me down the hall, puts me in a closet. Kidding. So she knows before I know, and she'll alert for me to take medication. And that medication takes about 15 minutes to really kick in, makes your heart beat really, really fast, which not really possible to fall asleep when you're like that. It's not particularly healthy, though, to do. So it's not something you take nilly-willy. I'd like to live past, like 55. So right around the time that heavy feeling of sleepiness is hitting in, where, okay, it's going down. Like, even for a regular person, you've been on your phone, when you're like, you almost drop your phone or something because you've fallen asleep, that same feeling. Right as that's starting to hit, the heart beats fast. And so I have not actually fallen asleep in public at all since having Quinn, because she alerts so well.
I love that vision of the story. There's a thing on Netflix, Secret Life of Dogs, or How Dogs Think, or it's a series. And there's a part of it where, and I was so intrigued by it. Maybe that's why I've always just been really intrigued when I see service dogs. And I'm just like, this is remarkable that these dogs have this ability. And so that little section of that shows how there's certain dogs, and then they pick them based on their abilities, and are they good for this or for that? And so some more and more about your story, and that too. Yeah. I honestly, in my brain, I never even imagined when you said the amount of times you hear people say things like, I can't even wrap my head around how that would go in anybody's brain, but you can't fix stupid sometimes. And so education is everything. Education and awareness. So you're right. A story. Oh, that's so good. I am so just honored to have this time with you. And I'm so excited to see, because I just know, you have this beautiful energy, you have this beautiful light. You've got this beautiful dog. You've got this beautiful message, and you have a beautiful reason of not about you, but all about others and awareness. And what I've learned in my life is that combination, as long as you lean in as you are and say yes, what is possible. And I love that you're like, I can't even keep up. I feel like I'm very much in that vortex. Like, okay, like now it's like, so now like how, I don't even know how big I can dream, but I understand that like, if I let it go and trust the magic and be in service and give energy out, that the universe, God, universe, source, I say Gus, will bring us even more than we can imagine. Yeah. So where can people find you, follow you, get your book you, call you to be the person that creates the movie and the Netflix series? Because I'll be there front row for that grand opening or the premiere. Where can everyone find you?
So my website is a great starting point. It is michelleweger.com, 2 L's. So MICHELLEWEGER.com. And you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. It is Dane on a Plane. And tomorrow is Quinn's 45th flight already, and she's only 3. So you might just see us on a plane one day. If you do, come say hi.
Oh my gosh. And actually, let me end at that then, because I didn't come say hi. How does someone know? Is it in the band, the wardrobe? How does someone know if they can go up and say hello or they shouldn't?
That's a very great question. So every person is different, right? Some people, when you're in the line in the Starbucks, they're ready to make you best friends for life. My grandfather was one of those. He found a best friend every single place he went, every day. And some people, they're closed off. They're not available. So treat us the same way you would anyone else. If you saw someone, right? We're matching. If you saw me in public with our matching outfits, would you say something? Would you, give me a wave and be like, twinsies? If you would, then say something to us. And if you wouldn't, then don't. Treat us the same as anyone else.
And then you'll let us know if it's appropriate to continue, or can I pet your dog? You'll let us know.
Yeah, exactly. The answer is no for almost every service dog handler. You may see exceptions. And when you do, treat them as exceptions, not the rule. So, for example, while mine was in training, we said yes to 1 out of 10 people who asked. And that was so that, she was a COVID puppy. And, although she was bomb proof, our trainer pointed out that if we were ever in an accident and a stranger had never handled her, it could mean the difference between my service dog going in the ambulance with us or her going to the pound or running off. So that is an example of where there are exceptions to the strangers don't get to touch service dog rule. And so if you see something like that happening, don't make assumptions. It doesn't mean they're fake, and it doesn't mean you can do it every time. Just ask.
So good. Thank you for your time, Michelle. I am so excited to continue our relationship together. And just thank you for sharing your light and trusting your magic, because I know you're gonna help a lot of people see in their own stories what their version of, and seeing the best of a situation. You're going to be able to help so many people. So thank you so much for your time.
And for you, quickly, what's next? This is a new format. You're making some changes, new name. So how about we take this time to share that with the audience?
Yes, I've been in YouTube. I played around like 10 years ago, but I'm definitely a longer format girl. So speaking, stages. I have a couple of books actually coming out, because really just stepping into my creativity and following my magic and just sharing the craziness that is Carol, and being, at 54 currently, feeling like I'm tapped into the young version of Carol, back to who she was before the world put all these things on. So just really light and energetic, and really vibing with certain people and calling them in and moving forward that way. But to your point, so much more than I can even imagine is coming. So I think I see us both on a stage together, back in the green room going, could you believe we called it? And then we'll be able to replay it. Maybe we're with Oprah, like whatevs.
Let's go. We're to the moon and beyond.
Yes. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for that question.